With the release of GD03 upon us, I wanted to take a look at some of the GD03 Vagan support we got to see if this deck is any more viable now. A quick warning, I don't think this deck is anywhere near meta, but it is nice to see that they continue to add more cards to kind of give fans of the deck and the play style more options to kind of make it more viable and something fun to take to your locals and might take some people by surprise. So going into the deck list, um, here we have two copies of Bacto, excuse me if I pronounce it wrong, just a level 2 cost to a 2/3 unit, and then the new 4 copies of the new Farsia. This card just has I want to say an effect, but it just says this card in your trash gets cost -1, which is key here. Um, and then from there on level 3, we have 4 copies of the Grace Custom 2. This deck is mono purple, so this kind of helps us cycle through the hand and also kind of fill up our trash at the same time. And then for the other level 3 unit here is 4 copies of the new unit here that's linked with X Rounder trait, which is pretty good because that links with both of our pilots that we'll see, and then the command pilot urine that we're also running. Same thing with the level 4 unit. It's just 4 copies of the new X Rounder trait linkable unit. And this one says on attack, you may choose one Vagan card from your trash, exile it from the game. If you do choose one of your Vagan units, it gets AP +2 during this turn. That's pretty strong to bump up one of these level 2 or smaller guys in this. And then level 5 cost 3. Obviously, that's from GD02. But just a reminder of that effect. It's during pair attack. You may choose one of your other units, destroy it. If you do choose one enemy unit that is level 4 or lower, deal 2 damage to it. So that kind of helps us set it up. We could potentially play something from our trash with the link from Dazzle, which will come in here second, and then just kind of discard it to get that extra ping damage. And then on level 5, it's one of the other new one, Defruze, I think is how you say that, but it's a deploy. You may choose one X render card from your trash and add it to your hand. If you do, discard one. Uh, the way I envision this working based on the title, it does help us get back Urine, who's a command pilot, which is pretty strong. I think the main issue with command pilots is if they're in your life, they for the most part don't have a burst, so it kind of just goes away. But this card kind of helps us bring it back. And then to top it all off, it's the Zadra, the new unit. It has high maneuver on deploy, and then when paired with the X Render pilot, you may choose 4 Vagan cards from your trash, exile them from the game. If you do, choose one enemy unit that is level 4 or lower, destroy it. Uh, with the way this deck is set up and works with also with the command cards in our base, it's pretty easy to fill up the trash with 4 Vagan units, especially with some of these. I want to say everything from level 2 to level 4, we're kind of just swinging, right? We would kind of be on the aggressive here and just trade into bodies, get them back in the trash, and then use a Dazzle to get the level 2s back into the field and just kind of rinse and repeat, and then eventually just exile them from the game to kind of pop a level 4 or lower unit. And then for the pilot, just obviously 4 Dazzle. When linked, you may choose one Vagan unit card that is level 2 or lower from your trash, play its cost to deploy it. I think the GD03 here, Farsia, kind of makes this somewhat workable, especially I didn't include the other level 2 Vagan card, which it can only battle enemy units. It can't actually get life from your opponent. And then the new GD03 Zehart, when paired, place the top 2 cards of your deck into your trash. If you place a Vagan card with this effect, choose one enemy unit, it gets AP -2 during this turn. This also helps get more Vagan cards in the trash to get the Zedra effect off when you pair it. And then we have 2 copies of the new Urine Command Pilot. Action: choose one friendly unit paired with an X Runner pilot. It can't receive battle damage from an enemy unit with 2 or less AP during this battle. If you are level 7 or higher, it can't receive damage from enemy units with level 5 or less AP instead. So I don't think this is. I think the effect's okay. This is more just late game if we need a lake. She's an X rounder. She links with the 4 copies of Farsia. She links with the X rounder trade, so that it kind of just helps us late game if we need to just go for game and kind of link something if we don't have any Dazzlers at hearts in hand. And then just 4 copies of Fatal Strike. I think this is still probably the best purple card out there, especially command wise. Just being able to just pop something level 3 or lower for free is pretty good. For free, meaning not having to trade your units into it. We are running 2 momentary respite. This I could argue you could probably take this out, but just in case we don't see any of the level 5 unit here to kind of get pilots or X Runner cards back, we can just use this. And also, it has a burst of draw 1, so it does help us get some draw ability. And then for the base, I chose the Frieden just to, when destroyed, just mills the top 2 cards of our deck into the trash, kind of get that Vagan units in the trash and kind of help us get our effects of either bringing it back or exiling it to get an effect off. Other considerations for this deck is Look of Determination. This is the new GD03 card. Choose one enemy unit that is level 2 or lower, destroy it. If there are 10 or more cards in your trash, choose one active enemy unit that is level 4 or lower instead. The only reason I went with this instead of Fatal Strike, or I went with Fatal Strike instead of this, is just the fact that it says active units. I think that's just Fatal Strike doesn't care if it's rested or active, just get rid of it, which I think is a little better. And then towards Destiny, main or action, choose one friendly Vagan unit and one enemy unit, deal 2 damage to them. I guess this could help fill up your trash, but my main issue with this card is it doesn't have a burst, right? Like it's pretty useless if it's in life and it's a command card that's not a command pilot, so it's not like traded to anything specific, so it's not specifically noted as a Vagan card, so I can't really bring it back, or an X rounder card. And then Laughter. I think here, since we run for the Grays custom, we can pretty much potentially use this to kind of damage another Vagan unit and then smacking Laughter under it and giving it high maneuver. So, like I said, basically, you want to see your Farsias early in the game. You want to play them and you want to trade them in, and then that way, when you play Dezel, you just link it with one of the other units, and then paying one extra resource to get it back on the field and kind of give you a little 2-for-1 there. And then also the freedom kind of helps if you don't see it early, just getting it in trash, because you want to see it early game. You want to swing into it and either trade or put the aggression on just to get it into trash. Like you want your opponent to swing into this or kill it somehow or either block it. You just need this thing in trash so you can just bring it back out. And then, like I said, the Grays Custom 2 here just helps us with the card draw, also helping us with filling up cards in our trash since we draw one, discard one. Momentary Respite can help us get a purple pilot from trash if we don't see the unit to the side, where we can choose one X Rider card from your trash and then add it to our hand and then discard one. And then I think what's really helping this deck is the inclusion of X Rounder traits. It's not specified to Zierheart or Dezel, so it kind of helps you just whichever one you have in hand and you meet the level requirement, you can kind of just play it. I do think the new level 4 cost 3 of being able to just exile one card and then get something AP +2 pretty much helps, especially with the quote unquote weenie body, especially the Farsi only having 2 AP. Being able to get that up to 4 and potentially trade into something bigger is pretty good, and then that way you also get it back into trash. And then, like I said, Fatal Strike really helps here too, especially when you're playing blockers. You just pop a Lifrith or pop a Rick Diaz for only 2 resources and not having to swing into any other units, especially with the weenies. They only have 2 AP. They can't really trade favorably into Rick Diaz or the Rick Diaz or the Lifrith. And then again, the boss monster here from GD03 that this deck got is pretty good. Not needing the pilot to have high maneuver is good on any card. And then also being able to just pop a level 4 unit is pretty good. Especially if you run into a scenario where the late game where your opponent is just dumping their hand to kind of force your hand to say, hey, if you don't beat me this turn, I'm going to kill you the next turn. Is pretty good, especially like that late in the game. You can choose 4 Vagan cards that you don't really need, especially like those 2/2s that aren't Farsia or anything else that command pilot. If you don't think you're going to need urine, you can just discard it and then kind of get the effect off. So overall, I think it's a fun deck. I don't think it's anywhere near meta, but I could see a scenario where you're playing aggressive style here and you're able to just get ahead, especially if you see the right pieces and your opponent's pretty much playing catch up and having to trade into your board, which helps you in the later game because you're also just filling up your trash to either bring the Farsias out or just exiling things to get other effects off. So I think this is something you can take to your locals, or just if you're a fan of the Age overall series. That I do appreciate how they just continue to print cards to kind of make this more viable. And I'm interested to see what they do because I know they're missing the 3rd generation. So hopefully, Vagan gets another LR and another pilot to kind of help build out the deck. And then also just lean on the other command cards build for other archetypes that really fit well in here, like Fatal Strike and the Vulture base. So that's it, guys. Just enjoy the gameplay after this, and thank you.